Retirement can bring freedom, but it can also make us careless. You may have heard the story. One day, the Buddha was walking through a forest with his monks. He bent down, picked up a handful of leaves, and asked them a simple question. Which is greater, the leaves in my hand or the leaves in the whole forest? Of course, they answered, the leaves in the forest. And the Buddha said, what I discovered in awakening is like the leaves in the forest. What I teach is like the leaves in my hand. In other words, he did not teach everything. He taught what was useful, what helped bring suffering to an end. And that matters. Because when people hear Buddha's teachings about karma, rebirth, and the nature of the world, they sometimes expect a complete map of the universe. But that is not what the Buddha gave. He gave a practical sketch, just enough to help us live wisely, just enough to help us suffer less. And for those of us growing older, that is a powerful lesson. Because retirement, aging, illness, loss, uncertainty, these things have a way of making life feel less theoretical and more immediate. You stop asking abstract questions and start asking very human ones. How do I live well now? How do I meet pain without being crushed by it? How do I stay steady when life changes quickly? How do I prepare for what is coming? The Buddha's answer was not figure out every detail of your past lives. Figure out exactly what will happen next. Map the whole cosmos. His answer was simpler. Pay attention to your actions, because your actions shape your experience, not your status, not some fixed identity, not whether you think you're naturally good or naturally bad. What matters is what you're doing now, what you're feeding in the mind now, what habits you're strengthening now. That is good news, because it means you're not trapped. The mind can change quickly, faster than we think, even late in life, even after years of old habits, even after regret. That is one of the most hopeful parts of this teaching. You're not frozen in place. You're not just the way you are. You can become more patient, more peaceful, more disciplined, more kind, more free. The Buddha said, skillfulness comes from heedfulness. That is an old word, but an important one. Heedfulness means remembering that your choices matter, that life is uncertain, that cause and effect are real, that what you practice today becomes the life you live tomorrow. It is not fear. It is not paranoia. It is not morbid thinking. It is clear seeing. And that is especially important in retirement, because retirement can go in two very different directions. It can become a time of ripening, more reflection, more calm, more wisdom, more gratitude. Or it can become a time of drifting, more distraction, more comfort seeking, more avoidance, more quiet despair. The difference often comes down to this: are we becoming more intentional or more careless? The Buddha warned against complacency. He said, just because things are going well now does not mean they always will. And here he gave a useful image. Karma is not like a single bank account with one running balance. It is more like a field full of seeds. Some seeds have already sprouted. Some are sprouting now. And some are still buried in the ground, waiting for conditions. So a person enjoying peace right now may still have difficult seeds waiting. And someone going through hardship may still have beautiful seeds not yet revealed. That is why the Buddha said, do not become careless. If life is good now, use that goodness well. Strengthen the mind. Deepen your practice. Grow the qualities that will help you later. Because when pain comes, and for all of us, sooner or later it does, we need something stronger than wishful thinking. We need an inner foundation. So what do we develop? The talk points to several qualities. First, virtue and discernment. That means learning to understand your own mind. Learning how to talk yourself into doing what is good, even when you do not feel like it. And learning how to talk yourself out of what is harmful, even when it is tempting. That is wisdom, not abstract philosophy, practical wisdom, strategic wisdom, the kind that says, this thought will lead to suffering. This habit will not help me. This resentment is costing me too much. This reaction is making things worse. Second, strength of mind. The Buddha said we need to become less overwhelmed by pain and less intoxicated by pleasure. That is a deep teaching. Because most of us think the problem is pain. But pleasure can throw us off too. Pain can make us reactive. Pleasure can make us careless. So meditation teaches a middle way. When pain arises, can you stay with it without panic? Can you soften around it? Can you observe it instead of becoming it?
And when pleasure comes, comfort, ease, success, relief, can you enjoy it without clinging to it, without becoming lazy, without losing your center? That matters a lot as we age, because aging brings discomfort. The body changes, energy changes, sleep changes, health changes. And if we have not trained the mind at all, every discomfort feels personal. Every ache feels like an insult, and every loss feels unbearable. But if we train, we begin to see more clearly. Pain is here, but panic does not have to be here. Difficulty is here, but despair does not have to be here. The Buddha also taught a beautiful image for dealing with suffering. Make your mind like a river, not a cup. If you put a lump of salt into a small cup of water, the whole cup becomes undrinkable. But put that same salt into a wide river, and the river can hold it. Our suffering is like that. If the mind is narrow, contracted, self absorbed, even small pains become overwhelming. But if the mind is larger, steadier, kinder, more spacious, it can hold difficulty without collapsing. How do we become more like a river? Through goodwill, through equanimity, through widening the heart. The Buddha said to develop goodwill for all beings. Not because everyone is easy to love, not because everyone behaves well, but because hatred and bitterness shrink the mind. Goodwill makes the mind larger. And equanimity helps too, especially with the people we love. When someone close to us is sick, struggling, or making harmful choices, we suffer twice. We suffer from their pain and from our inability to control it. Equanimity is what lets us say, I care deeply. I will do what I can, but I cannot control everything. That is not coldness, that is maturity. And for retirees, this is huge, because later life often brings exactly these situations. A spouse's illness, a child's problems, a friend's decline, a loss you cannot fix. At that point, the question becomes, can I meet this with steadiness? Can I help where I can help? And can I stop torturing myself over what I cannot control? The Buddha's teaching is not a promise that life will become predictable. It is a training in how to remain skillful even when life is not predictable, even when conditions change, even when old pain returns, even when fear arises. That is heedfulness. A quiet sense that says, stay awake, stay honest, stay practiced, do not drift. And that is really the heart of this teaching. Not anxiety, urgency, not panic, purpose. The Buddha said the secret of his awakening was that he did not become content with partial skillfulness. If there was more freedom possible, he kept going. If there was more clarity possible, he kept going. If there was a deeper peace available, he did not settle for less. That may be the real message for us in later life. Do not assume your inner work is over. Do not assume comfort is enough. Do not assume aging means you stop growing. This stage of life can be one of the most meaningful of all. A time to simplify, a time to practice, a time to let go of what no longer matters, a time to become inwardly unshakable. The world is uncertain. The body is uncertain. Circumstances are uncertain. But the mind can be trained. And that training matters. Because the more skillful the mind becomes, the less suffering it creates. And the more peace becomes possible. Not someday, but here and now. So if life is going well, do not become complacent. And if life is difficult, do not become hopeless. Keep practicing. Keep strengthening what is good. Keep widening the heart. Keep training the mind. That is how we prepare for whatever comes. And that is how we grow older with dignity, steadiness, and peace. Not by knowing everything, but by living wisely.